Alright everybody, so yesterday I came out with a short video detailing sort of different areas, different control zones on the map of Overgrowth and what you wanted to do in each one. So I came up with a little bit of a more updated map for this just so it would show you all the sort of control zones, especially the control zones necessary when you attack the first sentry. So again, in this picture, we're assuming that you are spawning at the bottom base here, and I'm just going to go ahead and go through each one of these control zones and what they're used for. As you can see, I'm not just using ovals anymore. It's more detailed in the sort of areas or the areas and zones that you want to control. So the first one we're going to start off with is that green area to the left of your first sentry. This is right in the opening to where your sentry turret is on the left side there. There's going to be it's an inclined opening, and that's what you're going to use as cover. I call this the sentry last stand area. And again, these names that I give them, they're not the callouts. You don't call it the sentry last stand area right there. That's not what you call it. I'm only calling it that in this picture because that's what you're doing there. You're only in this area if it's sort of a last stand on your sentry. You can kind of use this as a decent vantage point to get up higher in the air if you're standing on top of the inclined ramp that is the opening into the turret tunnel. You can use that for longer than just your last stand, but this is just kind of a defensive area. Obviously, if you're shooting from back here, the enemy team, you don't have any way to challenge them if they try and push in and attack your sentry other than to do damage to them, but you're not really able to push them back. So the sentry last stand area is kind of a place that you want to avoid having to be in this area. It's not a bad place to be, but generally speaking, if you're in this area, you want to push forward. The next one is the black area. This is just the sentry main defense area. When you're playing defensively and they have control of the center, this is the main area you want to be in, and it's the main area you want your team to be in. As you can see, I don't have that black area pushed up very far because once you push out there far, then you're going to be open to a lot of attacks by the enemy team, and so you have to be careful if you push up farther than the black area. The next part is the blue shock turret poke. This poke area, it's a decent area to be in. The only thing is that generally it's very hard for the rest of your team to help you out when you're over there. So it's just a poke area. You peek your head out, do a little bit of damage. If you have a lot of the enemy team come running at you, you get out of there. If you have only one person on the other team come after you, you might challenge them, see if you can get a kill, and then get back to your team or advance forward with your team if you do get that kill. The white area, that's just the window. I call it the window poke for this, and that's just because when you're up in the window, all you're doing is you're doing some damage, seeing if you can make an opening so that the rest of your team can push. So just remember, the light blue area and the white area, those are just poke areas. You don't necessarily want to have a lot of your team up there. Most of your team, generally speaking, you want in the main defense area, that black area. That's where you're going to push out from, but the light blue and the white area, that's where you're going to poke at them from and try and do some damage to create an opening so that the rest of your team can push forward through. And then once you've poked them enough or you've made an opening, you want all your people who are in the black sentry main defense area, you want them to push forward to that purplish area that I call the shock turret assault area. Once you've pushed forward to here, you can still have someone in the shock turret poke and the window poke, that's fine, but what you're trying to do is you're trying to clear that area out so that you can take control of it. Generally speaking, you don't want to just sit in this purple area for too long. You want to try and take map control. You want to be very aggressive and push the rest of the team out of there. And once you start being aggressive, that person on that shock turret poke, they're usually the first person who needs to move forward and take that orange shock turret defense area. The shock turret defense area, it's kind of a big area, and it's that big. It's not really big, I guess, but it comes around that wall and all the way to that sentry, and the reason being is that the area behind the wall, that's a very defensive position. So when you have your first person go from the shock turret poke, that light blue area, over to the orange area, what they'll do is they'll stand behind the wall and just deal as much damage as they can to anyone out in the open that they can see, and then afterwards, once you've moved everybody out, then the people from the shock turret assault area, that purple area, they move forward to the orange area, and then they try and hold that position, and then you'll have a couple people who are out in the front who can who are in the center of the lane, and then they can push forward and do damage to the sentry if they want to, and then other people will be hiding back behind the wall, and behind the wall on the orange area in the shock turret defense area, that's where you put all of your healing. That's where you put, like, if you've got Cleese energy rifts, stuff like that. That's your sort of safe zone. That's where you go if you're hurt and you need healing. But then once you get healed back up, you get back out into the lane and start pushing again. So if you're in the shock turret defense area, obviously you don't want anybody back in the white window poke or the purple shock turret assault or the shock turret poke, that light blue area. You don't want anyone back there. One mistake I see a lot of people make is they'll play and they'll have someone back at the window poke at this point. That's a terrible idea. The only time you really kind of want someone sort of sitting back, and even if they're sitting back, they're still in that shock turret defense area, but they would be sort of close to where the big shard is, because if you have a sniper, if you make a line down the lane, you can actually, if you're kind of in between the main big shard on the left side and the center pillar in the shock turret area, then if you're standing right there, and again, that's still kind of in the orange shock turret defense area. It's kind of in the shock turret assault area too. It's kind of where they meet, but then you can look down the lane and shoot minions from afar. So sometimes it's good to put a sniper there, or a Toby. That's a decent spot for them, or a Thorn, something like that. Someone who can shoot all the way down that lane and put damage on anybody who pokes their head out. But that's the only time you want anyone back, or sort of back at all, when you're moving forward and when you have control of the center area. Otherwise, you want absolutely everyone sort of pushing forward. The biggest mistake in Battleborn is people play like little girls. You have to play very aggressive if you want to win. If you play very aggressive, you can easily overpower a team that's much better than you, just because map control is absolutely massive in this game. So then once you have a pretty solid setup on the orange and red areas, the red area, I call it the sentry assault area, you want somebody up there, generally speaking, who has range. They'll take out the thumper turret for you, and they'll be able to take out that sentry turret there too, and then they sit in this red area and they'll just shoot some damage on the sentry bot, and if the enemy team doesn't try and stop them while they're up there, they'll just slowly take away its health. Otherwise, generally speaking, you'll have someone on the enemy team try and rush you, and then you just run back and make them have to come up to that window area where they're kind of going to be in trouble if your team's set up real well. And now these next few ones, I didn't have these in the last video, but they're very important. These are sort of flanking areas that you want to go with. The first one is that yellow area on the enemy team's sentry turret. I call this the sniper flank because you really only want to go there if you're a sniper. You have to have range in order to use this flank and hit the sentry bot. You can't really use someone like a Caldarius, though, because if you try and get out into the opening at all, that inclined opening, then the sentry bot will be able to shoot you. But if you stay far enough back, the sentry bot will shoot at you, but its main attack, that little, it's not really a rocket attack, but the projectile attack that it shoots that does huge damage, that'll hit the opening instead of hitting you on the inside. So you really only want a sniper to go that way. And again, whenever you're over there, you got to be careful, because if somebody rushes you, you're kind of out in the open and you're kind of screwed for a while. But hopefully, if you have your healing set up on that orange area, that shock turret defense area, you can, generally speaking, make it out to there. And then if the enemy pushes at you, you can generally pick them off. But the next flanking area is what I call the agility flank. That's over to the right by the double thralls. It's called the agility flank because the only people who can get there are people who have I guess what you could call high levels of agility. They've got to be able to jump very high. So a Thorn can do it if you give her the extra height on her jump and the pushback on her melee. Amelka can get up there, and Isaac can get up there. Deande can get up there. Cleese can actually get up there too if you jump from the opposite side of like where your first sentry is. I don't know if you can get up there without jumping from the opposite side though, but that area is pretty decent. The only thing about the agility flank is you are super isolated over there. There is no one who can help you. So anytime somebody pushes at you, you just got to drop down. The great thing about the agility flank, though, is like, let's say you're up there and you're an Isaac, so you plasma dash up there, and then you have like a Galilean, a Wrath come after you, and they're both coming after you real hard. Well, the first thing you do is you drop down. A lot of times, if you have multiple people coming after you, they'll chase after you because they think they'll get that kill. But by the time that you've dropped down, your plasma dash will be almost back. So if it's two melee characters who drop down in the double throttle area, you can just plasma dash right back up and they can't do anything about you. And so you've completely isolated them from their team, and so you can call out to the team and say, hey, we got two people in the double throttle area, or you can just keep attacking the sentry if it's close to death and just finish it off. But the agility flank is a great place to be if used well, but if you do it and you're not really thinking, you're just going to get yourself killed because you're completely isolated. And then the final flank area is what I call the stealth flank area, and as you can see, that's the blue area up on the top. That's a huge area. It's the biggest area that I have here. That includes their thumper turret and health station area all the way back past their accelerator and shock turret and their big shard. Now you might think that's a real big area, but again, it's for someone who uses stealth. So when you use your stealth back there to try and get away from someone, sometimes you'll just run back to where your team is. Other times you'll just run to a different part of this area just to lose the enemy who's following you. But always remember, if you get back to the shard back there and where the shock turret is, the enemy sentry can't hit you. So if you're up near the healing station and the thumper, if you're not in the right position, the enemy's sentry bot can completely destroy you and it'll crush you. But if you get back towards that shock turret and that big shard, or not, it's not a big shard, but that shard that's back there, then you can be completely safe from all enemy AI, and so that's a pretty good spot to be. So you have to use basically that whole area. But again, this is just like that agility flank. If you go up here, you're by yourself, so you have to always have some way to get out of there. Otherwise, you're just going to end up dying and feeding the other team and giving them a lot of experience. So hopefully this video is a little bit better than the last one. It's got a little bit more information. Also, I feel like when I painted it this way, I guess you can call it, in the image editor that I had, it's a lot better than the ovals, and it gives you a little bit more information about specifically where you need to be. Like I said before, if you want to really understand how to play this game, remember that each one of these different areas has a different function. Until you've completed that function at that area, you don't want to push forward. You don't want to just run from one place to the next all helter-skelter. You have to have a reason for being somewhere, and each place has a different function or task that you're supposed to complete, so you have to keep that in mind. And anyways, I'll be coming out with more of these for more of the maps, but this is my fully detailed one for attacking the first sentry on Overgrowth.